So if at any time you want to ask questions, on your GoToWebinar panel on the right-hand side, there is a questions panel that's in there that you can expand and type in your questions. And so that way, as the webinar goes on, if you have any questions in the moment, you can type in the questions there, and at the end of the webinar, I'll go ahead and review everything and then go ahead and answer all of those as well. So we'll go ahead and dive straight into the webinar here. And so basically what we're going to talk about today is we'll just give a quick intro of boundary systems, and then we'll dive straight into the demonstration of Performance Advisor, and then we'll come back and wrap up with a few frequently asked questions, and then finish up with the Q&A. Now, I will mention that for this particular webinar series or content, for this particular one, the content is most applicable to administrators of Creo. So typically your CAD admins in the company. Now, you may be in that role either because it's a specific job title or function that you have officially, or you may be in that role because the previous person left and organically everyone comes to you with their Creo questions and admins and have you install the software and license it and do all of those different things. And so you may be there officially but unofficially or unofficially, but ultimately this webinar and series and content is meant for people in that particular role. And so I'll go ahead and go through the content, and then we'll dive into it. So first off, a quick introduction on Boundary Systems and who we are. So Boundary Systems is a technology leader in the product development field, primarily using CAD and CAE software. And not only do we do that, we also do a lot of product lifecycle and product data management, and also BOM management as well. We also do a lot of simulation and CAD design and consulting. And just to give you, now again, just another brag slide about us, we have been on the Inc. 5,000 list of fastest growing companies in North America for 4 years consecutively, and we've also been the top 100 fastest growing businesses in Northeast Ohio for 3 years consecutively, according to the Weatherhead 100. And so when it comes to doing what we do and achieving greater and greater levels of success for our customers, we have consistently proven to do that, and hence that has also shown in our bottom line as well. And so now what we'll do is I will pause with the PowerPoint here. Really, that's all to do with the PowerPoint. I will just go ahead and show a live demo of the Performance Advisor. So, give me a second here while I switch screens. Do that. Okay, there we go. Everyone can see this now. So basically, I'll start off with this here. Now, the Performance Advisor is something that you'll access from the PTC support page. So basically, you'll go to support.ptc.com, or you can also go to ptc.com/support, or you can go to the homepage ptc.com, and you'll always see all of these commands or tabs the last one here, support, you can click on that directly and it'll get you to the home page here. Now you'll have to have a PTC.com login, and in this particular case you'll have to have one that is tied to a specific customer SCN or service contract number, and also you'll have to have admin privileges or support admin rights as well. Now, assuming all those boxes are checked, in order to get access to it or to see it, you would click on this Add Portlet button over here, and over here there'll be the icon for Performance Advisor for PTC Creo. In my case, I already added that portlet to my support page, and so in this case it says all my available portlets are in use. But if you've never added it before, you will see it right in here once you click on that Add Portlet button. And so once you click on that, when you see it here, it'll add it to your support page over here, and now you can go ahead and close that. And so now I'll go ahead and leave this here for now. Meanwhile, I will go back to my computer and basically show the beginning of the process. And so basically what the Performance Advisor does is it shows you data that PTC already gathers from many installations and uses of PTC Creo across your network. And so, in other words, where we're going to start then is the installation side of things. And so, say for example, I take the shoes of a CAD administrator. My name is John Doe, for example, and I'm, administering Creo for 10, 10 Creo users across my network. In your case, it may be 5, it may be 20, it may be 100, however many you have. In this case, I have 10 users, and so I'm installing Creo on their laptops. And whenever I have the Creo download, I say I want to install a new software, I'll go ahead and walk through that typical install process. And as I go through that installation, say I put in my license information, and now this over here tells me, what to pick, what applications I want to install. You'll notice over here it says there's diagnostic reporting. And that diagnostic reporting is checked for each of the applications that it installs, right? Not only that, but you'll also notice here where it says enable diagnostic data collection for these applications. So I'll say it this way. Whenever you're installing the software, Creo will go ahead and automatically install this right here, PTC Diagnostic Tools. Now, it's impossible to prevent it from installing. Typically, the installation will always force that down in conjunction with everything. And in this case, it's already installed. Now, with that, what this does over here is this tells the specific application to report to that PTC Diagnostic Tools. So in other words, this checkbox here, for example, tells PTC Creo Parametric, every time I use Creo Parametric, take some data and pass it on to the PTC Diagnostic Tools application. That's basically what this box tells it right here. And so if I then go ahead and install, that data reporting will be configured for this particular installation. Now, in a case where you do not want, diagnostic reporting to be done, you don't want the data to be collected or sent, you can, remove the checkboxes here and also remove those checkboxes here. And so that will be a case where you have privacy concerns and things like that. Now, part of this webinar will go through what kinds of data is collected, so that way you're aware of those issues, and so you can make a more informed decision as to whether your privacy is at risk or not. And so that's all for this side here. I will go ahead and close this right now, or I guess I'll minimize that. And I'll then go look for that PTC Diagnostic Tools. That is a program that's installed on your computer. And we'll click on that now and go through the rest of it here. And so basically when it pops up, what you'll see is a window that shows you basically what's collected. And so first off, this tells you for a commercial license, this tells you how often do you want the diagnostic tools program to send the data to PTC. And so typically so in this case it says daily, and so once a day, every time during the day, whenever I use Creo, it will send the data to diagnostic tools, and diagnostic tools will keep that data on my computer. And then at a specific time every day, diagnostic tools will check and realize, okay, I have pending data that has not yet been sent to PTC. And so based on the preferences on how frequently you set it up, it will then pass that data on to PTC if you tell it to send the data to PTC. Now there's a way to disable, the sending, so that way, again, if you're concerned about privacy, you can have it can collect the data, but whenever you remove those check boxes in the installation box, it will not send it to PTC. So again, it will not, send that data on if you're concerned about privacy. But once again here, it'll collect everything in the pending data, and then once a day, it'll then send it to PTC. And so, for example, if I click on this last sent tab over here, you'll notice here the last sending date was December 1st, which is yesterday. And so yesterday, it sent, some information to PTC. Now, what information does it send to PTC? And this is where, this addresses some of those privacy issues as well. And so first off, you'll notice here, it doesn't send my host name, so my computer name, my username, and my domain name. All of those, it doesn't send to PTC by default. For my system, it sends things like, my manufacturer, what computer I'm using, my CPU specs, if I have, a 3 gig switch on, things about, my available RAM, and then also, my operating system. And then it also adds in there my graphics cards, things like that. So non-personal information that's specific to the computer and not to me. Those are the kinds of things it gathers in this case from the system, right? Next up, the specific applications can then, it can gather information from specific applications. So in this case, if I pick on Creo Parametric here, for example, in this case, it has, for example, things like, based on my licensing information, it has, for example, things like here, the license that I pulled the last time I ran, whenever I run Creo, the fact that I'm on a 64-bit computer, using a floating license, the date code of Creo 3 that I'm running, and in this case my service contract number. So things like that is what it pulls. Now, as we then scroll down here, this then basically just lists, all of the different times during the day when I launched Creo, when I started it, when I ended it, how long it was, and, how I exited the application. So in this case, what kind of exit Creo had. And I'll go through this exit type, in a little bit. And so again, you'll notice a lot of what it's gathering is non-specific, data to me. It's basically computer data or data that's pre-configured. It's just reporting that. And so again, it's nothing about, my name or what I'm doing or what websites I'm browsing or things like that. And so it has all that session information down here, and then it sends it to PTC. Now at this point, I'll then go back to the, now another question that people usually ask is, can I change what is being sent? Can I influence what's being sent? Well, yes, you can do that. Under this data filters tab, you can click on that, and over here you can check or uncheck all of these boxes to have the diagnostic tools send or disable sending of that specific kind of information to PTC. So in this case, if I don't want PTC to know who manufactured my computer, I would remove that checkbox there for manufacturer. Now in this particular case, you'll note some of you are thinking and saying, hold on, everything there is grayed out. Well, yes, that is because in order for this to not be grayed out, you have to have the right access to the install directory of where PTC Diagnostic Tools is installed, which is again one of the downsides of modifying the installation path. Sort of as a side note, typically it defaults to C program files PTC, and you will typically have write access to it there. In my case, I configured the installation to C PTC, and so hence my installation is not the standard out of the box installation, and hence that's why it doesn't have the right access to it there. And again, it's something simple I can go change, and I'll be able to modify any of this information. And so now that we have an idea of what kind of data is gathered, I'll look at one more thing before we go on to the Performance Advisor. Over here, when we look at the data that is sent, so for example here with system information, you will notice over here it has a UUID, right? Now, first off, it doesn't send any of your host name or user information to PTC. The only way that the CAD administrator can identify which computer has this specific information is by this UUID over here. Now, this is an unintelligible hash that is generated automatically by the diagnostic tools on your computer. Immediately the data is generated, and it cannot be decrypted by anyone. It cannot be decrypted by you personally, and it cannot be decrypted by PTC themselves. And so again, when it comes to ensuring privacy and securing your data, this is a unique ID that's unique to you, but no one else but you can see this data on your computer, and no one else, even PTC, can decrypt this data to figure out that this is running on my computer. And so if I then go to my web browser again, this is where I'll go ahead and switch back to the Performance Advisor. Whenever I click over here, now this pulls out the Performance Advisor for PTC Creo. Now this is created with PTC's IoT platform called ThingWorx, and so ThingWorx basically collates all of that data together and shows it here in very easy to see and understand widgets. And so if I then go ahead and take a look at some of these widgets, for example, you can see here, if you click on the Add Gadget button, this has multiple tabs where you can see some of these gadgets. In this case, the overview gadget is already there. And if you want to add it to your dashboard, you can just click Add, and that pops it onto your dashboard. And likewise, you can scroll through any one of those gadgets and just add them to your dashboard. In this case, I already added a couple to my dashboard, and so I'll just go ahead and review what I have here currently. Now, the other thing about this is if you just want to practice with this as an admin, you haven't configured this yet for your users, there is sample data already loaded into the Performance Advisor, and so that way you can practice with this here and click on that sample data and begin to see what kinds of information you can glean from this. And so, for example, some of the things you can get out of this are going to be things like if I click over here where it says 59 hours average MTTX, it's interactive, and it brings up a window where it can then begin to show you things like the mean time to exit. Now in this particular case, an exit in a Performance Advisor speak is basically an unexpected closure of a PTC application. So a case where you did not explicitly click on the red X to close Creo. So Creo closed in a different way other than you clicking on the red X, and so maybe your computer ran out of memory, or there was, some unexpected traceback error that happened, or, your, Creo was killed in the task manager. However it was, that lists it over here. Now, typically that's valuable from a CAD admin point of view, because typically you want to increase as much time that your users are using Creo. So you don't want to have, so the higher your mean time to exit, the better, because that means Creo is not bombing out on users frequently, right? Um, and now this can then give you, from a historical perspective, what your historical mean time to exit has typically been. You can begin to see statistics, for example, like, for the different Creo date codes that you have installed, which one gives you the best mean time to exit? So which one is typically, in this case, the most stable, right? You can begin to see information like, okay, for the different Creo applications that my users use, and so Creo Direct or, Creo Parametric, which ones, give me the highest mean time to exit, right? Um, Now, I'll go back to the dashboard here, and another thing that you can begin to glean from this is which Creo date code you have installed. Now, this is beneficial because, if you have a case where you want to upgrade from one software to another, you want to upgrade from Creo 2 to Creo 3, well, you know, we can, do the legwork and touch as many people's computers as possible, but I can easily go in here and take a look to see if anyone else is still using Creo 2 on their computer. And I can tell them, hold on, we made a switch department-wide to go to Creo 3, a month ago. Um, or I can go over here to see if there's anyone I missed. I said I had 10 CAD users. I touched 9 of them, but I missed the last one. And so this is a very good, quick, and easy way for you to go and see, and see that information. Um, um, Now, I'll just take a side note here. I just noticed that someone here has their hand raised in the GoToMeeting panel. Um, if you have any questions or any comments, even you can type that into the questions box in the GoToMeeting window there, so that way I can read that and then get to that at the end of the webinar. Um, but and so I'll go ahead and get back to this here. Another thing you can glean from this is, for example, if I click on the users link over here, so this basically lists out, all the different users on, that have used Creo, which machines they've used it on, and, how many sessions they have, and typically how long their, mean time to exit is, right? Now, another thing we'll do here is we'll click on a specific user, and we can begin to see, in this case, the specific machine information. So in this particular example here, this tells me, their session time and duration. So this person has, in the last 10 days, has opened Creo 2 times on 2 different dates, and both times, in one case, it ran out of memory, and the other time it had a premature exit. So something funky is going on with this person's computer, right? Now, I can take a look at another benefit to this Performance Advisor from a CAD admin perspective is it also checks the machine specifications of the computer, and not only that, it collates that with PTC data. And so whenever I hover over this yellow triangle, it tells me, hold on, this machine has not been certified by PTC. And so now this gives me an idea. If I'm having performance issues and difficulties with this machine, one of the things I could potentially think about is, upgrading to or getting a machine that is, supported and certified by PTC. That way, at least I know that PTC has tested their applications on it and they certify it to work well, right? Um, Likewise, this can also give you an idea of, which users or which platforms, if you're thinking of doing an IT upgrade fairly soon and buying new computers, which of those computers are most urgent to, to be upgraded? Well, the ones that are not yet certified by PTC, right? Um, And now you can also then go ahead and drill down deeper into, anything you're looking at, the different sessions that were run, the different, date codes of Creo that were run. In this case, there's only one date code that was run. And you can also view, in this case, a detailed information of that particular user. Now, some of you are sitting there thinking, well, how do you know which user this is? Well, this is a case where you'll notice over here, it says the host is all of this right here. Again, it reports the scrambled or the hashed data. And so the only way for for you to know who that person is for really that person to self-record it. And so again, this goes to protecting users' privacy as well. And so this is something where you can have a company policy to where everyone, opens your diagnostic tools, scrolls down here and, sends you this data. And so that way I can have a spreadsheet where I can say, okay, I have this data and this correlates to Shaish and Borit. And so next time I have this host, with a problem, I can take a look at my spreadsheet and realize, okay, who that user is, what computer that is, and then I can go about, walking to their desk or something and fixing their issue. Now, another thing I will I'll also highlight over here is over here in when it comes to the top 5 users with premature exits. And so this lists, in this case, the most problematic, users, or the users with the most problems typically, in the company. And so, for example, if I click on this 5th one over here, and we'll have this load up here for a second. Some of the information that you can glean from this is, things like, again, over here, this machine configuration has been certified by PTC. And so, in this case, probably the problems you're experiencing are not due to, machine or hardware related issues. And if it is hardware related, this is one where we can we can open a case with PTC, send them the data, and they have to follow up on it. They have to troubleshoot it. They have to come up with a resolution because it's a supported, platform. And not only that, but I can then begin to see things like, okay, how many, how many normal sessions and exits did they have versus how many premature or, abnormal sessions did they have. And the beautiful thing about this is this gives you historical data that you can, again, change the dates, and you can filter and, set an earlier time frame if you want to see more, a wider time period. And you can then begin to take a look here and see, what happened during this time period. Was there, did we update the graphics drivers on this computer, or was there a Windows update, or was there something we did to the, to the computers that made sure that, that didn't have, Creo bombed out on those particular instances on his computer. This gives you, a historical view of that particular user. Now I'll go ahead and switch back to the dashboard again, and we'll highlight, one more tool over here. Currently, in this particular case for the sample data, this doesn't load up anything. But what we'll do is I will switch data and go to our data for boundary systems, and in this case, we're still loading it up on our machines, and so we don't have as many machines yet populated with this. But one of the things I'll show you here is when this recommendations gadget pops up here in a second. Okay, there we go. And so what this does is this takes a look at some of those exits and or abnormal exits that your users are having, and it also then searches the PTC knowledge base and sees if it can determine a fix for that particular issue. And so, for example, if I click on that particular recommendation, now it's then going to pull out some of that information for me. So, for example, it's going to talk about, again, something as simple as, how many times, that this particular issue has occurred, that we need to address, how many users it's affecting, how many it's currently affecting and how many new. Um, and whenever you click on, findings over here, I can then begin to see, what percentage of that user's, Creo usages are, unexpected due to this particular error. It also then will tell you what the error is. In this case, it's the Resource Center window closing immediately after loading Creo. And whenever you hit Solution over here, it tells you, it links this here to a PTC knowledge base article. So if I click on this here, this takes me straight to the PTC knowledge base article, right? And you'll notice all of this is already done for you, and so there's nothing that you have to, start. This basically reduces all of your troubleshooting, because all of this is done for you already. All you have to do is go ahead here, click on the solution, and you can take a look here and see. Now this also then gives you an idea of, how long it will take to do that. So this tells you, okay, how complex is it to do? It's easy. Now it may take some time, because you'll have to sit there and upgrade Creo to fix this particular recommendation, but it's an easy fix. And so you can begin to get an idea of how you can then go about supporting your users and helping them out. Now, if I then go ahead here, I go back to this, a dashboard page. Over here where it says recommendations and you're tracking, this over here is this particular recommendation here, and so this is the one that I'm tracking in this case. And so now if I say let me edit that, let's snooze that till some other time, I can snooze it. If I finished fixing that problem, I can say that issue is completed, or if it's not big of an issue, I can ignore it. Right. But again, this makes your admin work much easier as a result. Another thing that I'll highlight over here before we switch back is the platform overview right here. And we'll give it time to load up over here. So let's do this. Looks like that's taken a while to load up. So I'll just go to the sample data while that's so that way we don't take that much time. Okay, another thing that this also shows you as well is, from a platform perspective over your entire company, it shows you in this case, what the typical software and hardware is, for your company. You can click here to say let's show all properties, and you can see all of that detail, and it shows you in this case how many machines are running that particular platform and what percentage of that there is. And so this can then give you an idea of if we need to upgrade machines that are using ThingWorx, CAD, how many machines are we going to go buy? How much of an investment is that? Things like that. This can give you those, that level of insight into your environment. Now, I will then pause here for a second and switch back to the PowerPoint. So we'll go. Or actually, before I switch back to the PowerPoint, one last thing to mention or to highlight as well is over here on the PTC Communities page. So if you go to PTCusercommunity.com, or you can just search for Creo Performance Advisor or PTC Performance Advisor in Google, and the communities link is going to be one of the first say 5 or 6 that you're going to see, there's an entire group that's that's been created on the communities page, and this is an official forum that PTC monitors. Um, and we can begin to see things, for example, like whenever you see all content, this has discussions from many different CAD administrators that are currently using Performance Advisor. This also has product ideas as well. And so if you have an idea for, let's, show this, or let's, glean this other information. If I have an idea for, my users come to me and say they run out of licenses a lot, can, the Performance Advisor gather information about, what licenses users are grabbing at a particular time, so that way I can see which of my licenses I'm running out on, or I want to do a resource usage or license usage, summary. Can this gather information on that? Well, I can tell you, the diagnostic tools already gathers licensing information. This is a place where you can hold on 1 second. Okay. I apologize for that break in transition. My internet connection just bombed out there um, for a couple seconds. And again, talking about mean time to exit, I think this is something that my ISP should probably have. Um, but again, I digress. So basically, before we went off, I was just talking about the Performance Advisor communities page. And so basically, if you have any ideas about oh, I wish it had this, or I wish it had that, it will make my Creo admin work infinitely easier. This is the place to go, read about discussions that people are having, ideas that people are having, and you can post on that, support those ideas as well. This is a tool that is still budding, is still fledgling, is still very, very new and green. I think this was introduced in the M150 date code of Creo 2 and the M30 date code of Creo 3. And so it's still very new, and this is where PTC is actually listening to users' ideas and input to further shape how they develop the Performance Advisor. And so I'll then go ahead and switch to my what's it called, PowerPoint here. Actually, we should do it this way here. Okay, and so next to talk about are going to be the frequently asked questions. And so typically, people will ask, can I turn off the PTC diagnostic tools? The answer to that is no. It will install itself, and it will usually collect data from the applications. But then again, whenever you check those boxes in the installation, whenever you're installing it for the first time, unchecking those boxes will prevent it from sending the information to PTC. So in other words, the information will basically stay there on your machine and do nothing. Whenever it goes to what's it called? How does PTC protect your privacy? Typically that it does that through simple things. For example, like collecting non-user specific machine information, like what your graphics card is. Another thing it does is it also again hashes the particular user with a specific UUID that no one else can decrypt, and so that way your information is secure. And then what kind of information is collected by the performance advisor? I think we already went through that in the webinar. I showed you some of that information that's collected. How can I control what to send and when to send it? Again, you can control that in the diagnostic tools box, like I showed. You can check or uncheck boxes to send or not send, and also the frequency of when to send it. And also, can the performance advisor, determine what license server, a user is pulling licenses from? The answer to this is yes. The diagnostic tools gets a report of that. So Creo will tell the diagnostic tools, okay, I got a rep license from this server at this time. Now, currently, the performance advisor does not show that information on the web portal. And so if this is something where you think, this will help your license management run much smoother, a great place to go is that PTC communities page and submit an idea. Tell PTC, hey, we want to see licensing information in here, so that way we can get an idea of our license usage, resource usage, if our users are bombing out on licenses, and so that way we can get more licenses, or things like, or if we're not using as many licenses, and we can, dump one or two of them. That's something where you can go to that communities page and start filling in those product ideas. And so at this point, I will pause here and switch it off to questions. And so if you have any more questions, please type them in the questions panel at the bottom right of your GoToMeeting panel. Now I'll go ahead and address some of the questions that have come in here. Basically, I have two questions from two different people, but it's basically the same thing. One of them says, if you can see that a particular user is having problem, how do you find out who that particular user is? Or another one says, will there be a different UUID per user logon on the same machine? So for that second question about will there be a different UUID, so the UUID is the hash that PTC Creo generates or the diagnostic tools generates whenever it has what's it called, the information sent to it, so that way you can't personally identify the particular user. And then the other thing as well is that for that particular information, it typically stays constant per machine. The users will be different, so in that case, it will show you how many different users use the machine. But typically, the machines will have a constant UUID. That goes to the second question there. Now, for the first question about how do you know who the user is, typically that will have to be self-reported, and so you basically have to either beforehand, have your users go to the PTC Diagnostic Tools menu. And so if I, for example, pull this down here, I'll switch my windows back to my screen. Scroll one. Okay, and so for example, in my PTC Diagnostic Tools menu right here, I can go ahead and, as a user, go to my own computer and scroll down to the bottom here and see what my UUID is. Now I can send this here to my CAD admin, and so that way, whenever my CAD admin sees, this particular, issue, he can go ahead and correlate that UUID to, the particular user. And so this is where it'll be useful for the CAD admin to have a spreadsheet of potential UUIDs versus, users and machines. Now again, a lot of people have already asked, PTC, why don't you just put in the username or the host name in there? Well, again, right now PTC is protecting that for privacy, against privacy issues, and right now that is not data that they will publish on the Performance Advisor. Another thing, as well is, say for example, I have this UUID right here. I email my CAD admin and say, hey, I just had 3 exits of Creo in the last hour, unexpected. Could you take a look at this? I can copy this information for him and send it over. When he gets it, and say he's investigating this, a couple days later, over in the Performance Advisor environment in the users dashboard. So again, if I'm in dashboard here and I click on users, over here, it lists out all of the users. And if you have the patience, you can scroll through everything. If not, you can just click over here to say add filter, and you can type in that or copy paste that UUID of that particular user. And so I can paste it in there, and filter it, and it'll narrow it down to that one particular user that I can then click on and then get a a better look at their machine. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Right now there are no other questions or comments, so I'll go ahead and close the what's it called? The question pool here. If you have any other questions or comments whatsoever, where you need further information about this, how to set it up, or things like that, please don't hesitate to contact me. My contact information is right there at the top. That's my email address, and you go straight to me. And so you can shoot me an email at any time, and I'll be glad to answer your Creo Performance Advisor admin questions. And with that, that's the end of the demo. We thank you so much of the webinar. Sorry. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned again for more topics in our series of Boundary Webinar Wednesdays. Thank you very much.